Hello. Let us once again journey together through the teachings of Buddhism. Today, our theme is the first of the Four Noble Truths, the truth of suffering, or dukkha in Sanskrit and kutai in Japanese. The truth of suffering refers to the fundamental reality, taught by the Buddha that life is inherently filled with suffering. However, this is not a pessimistic view of life. On the contrary, the Buddha emphasized that in order to attain true liberation, we must begin by facing this reality as it is. How can we overcome suffering if we do not first understand it? He asked. In Buddhism, suffering does not refer only to painful or unfortunate events. It has a broader meaning, encompassing the inherent dissatisfaction and lack of control in life, growing old, becoming ill, dying, being separated from loved ones, meeting those we dislike, and failing to obtain what we desire. All of these experiences are seen as part of the nature of suffering. Today, I want to help you understand the deeper meaning of this truth by exploring the Buddha's own words and teachings. Together, let us reflect on what this means for our lives today. There is a famous story the Buddha once told, which beautifully illustrates this teaching. One day, a young woman named Kisagotami came to the Buddha, holding the body of her dead child in her arms, weeping desperately. "Please," she pleaded, "bring my child back to life." The Buddha looked at her gently and said, "Very well. But first, bring me a mustard seed from a household where no one has ever died." Filled with hope, Kisagotami went from house to house in search of such a home. But at every door she heard, "We lost our father," or "I lost my husband," or "This house too has buried a child." Every family she visited had experienced death. As she continued her search, Kisagotami began to understand. In the words people shared with her, she heard the same sorrow she was carrying. Every household welcomed her with compassion and shared their stories. "We understand your pain because we have known it too." Eventually, she realized the profound truth: the pain of death is universal. No one escapes it. Everyone lives through the loss of something precious. With this realization, she was finally able to bury her child and chose to become a disciple of the Buddha, beginning her path of spiritual practice. This story conveys a powerful message. Suffering is not something that happens to a select few. All of us, though in different ways, live lives shaped by the same essential nature of suffering. The Buddha looked deeply into this truth, examined its causes, and ultimately showed the path that leads beyond suffering. So why is life filled with suffering? Because we live in a world governed by impermanence. Everything changes. Youth, beauty, wealth, health, and even love, nothing lasts forever. Yet we cling to them as if they were eternal. It is this clinging, our attachment, that lies at the root of suffering. Let me ask you, is there something you are afraid to lose? It might be a person, a position, your youth or health, or perhaps a familiar environment. This fear of loss creates constant anxiety in our hearts and blocks the path to true peace. The Buddha identified 8 fundamental forms of suffering, known as the 8 sufferings: birth, aging, illness, death, separation from what we love, confrontation with what we hate, not obtaining what we desire, and the suffering arising from the 5 aggregates of body and mind Skand has. Even being born is considered a form of suffering. After all, a newborn's first act is to cry, a response to the unknown and overwhelming world they have entered. From the moment we are born, we are caught in the current of time, heading inevitably toward aging. As we age, our bodies weaken, we fall ill, and eventually we die. No matter how carefully we look after our health or how advanced medicine becomes, we cannot escape the passage of time. Being separated from someone we love may be the most painful experience in life. The deeper the love, the deeper the wound left by loss. On the other hand, encountering people we dislike or being thrust into unwanted situations also causes suffering. When we don't get what we desire, be it success, recognition, love, safety, or comfort, the disappointment can be crushing. The more we desire, the greater the pain when those desires go unmet. Finally, the five aggregates that make up who we are. Our body and mind are themselves unstable and constantly changing, and thus sources of suffering. Our physical condition changes from year to year, and our emotions shift from moment to moment. One day we feel joy, the next despair. This unending change makes it difficult to find any fixed sense of self. The Buddha observed and analyzed the nature of suffering with the precision of a physician diagnosing illness. In fact, he often likened himself to a doctor, one who identifies the disease, discovers its cause, presents the cure, and prescribes the medicine. But unlike a physician of the body, the Buddha treated the ailments of the heart, the illness of existence itself. His greatness lay in not resigning himself to suffering as fate, but in presenting it as something to be understood. He declared, "Life is suffering not to cause despair, but to show that by understanding suffering, we can begin the path to liberation." Let me share another story from the Buddha's time. One day, a renowned Brahmin priest asked the Buddha, "What truth have you realized? What truth do you know about life?" The Buddha calmly replied, "I have understood suffering. I have understood its cause. I have understood its cessation, and I have understood the path that leads to its cessation. That is the essence of the Four Noble Truths, and it all begins with understanding suffering." In this response, the entire teaching of the Buddha is contained. First, we must recognize suffering. Then we must understand its causes. We come to know that suffering can end, and finally, we learn how to walk that path ourselves. This is a practical, even scientific approach to human life. For the Buddha, knowing suffering was not a matter of abstract knowledge. It was a deeply personal insight, born of his own experience and observation. And it was from this understanding that compassion and empathy arose. To realize that everyone suffers does not lead us to judge others, but rather to accept them. You may have experienced this yourself. After overcoming a great hardship, you find that you can relate more deeply to others going through something similar. Likewise, the Buddha's profound understanding of suffering enabled him to extend unconditional compassion to all beings. This is the crucial point. The Buddhist truth of suffering does not exist to plunge us into despair. Rather, it is meant to cultivate compassion and empathy. When we understand that we and others are caught in the same structure of suffering, the seeds of support and understanding are planted where once there might have been conflict or division. In our modern world, we too face suffering in many forms. Uncertainty about the future, relationship troubles, illness and aging, grief, isolation, and a sense of not belonging. With the rise of social media, new types of suffering have emerged. We may compare ourselves to others and wonder, why am I the only one who suffers? Or why does everyone else seem so happy? But remember, the Buddha's teaching suffering is not reserved for a few. Everyone experiences it, though its form may differ. Behind the happy photos on social media, people carry their own worries and pain. At the root of much of our suffering is attachment, the desire to control things, to make them stay the same. The stronger our belief in how things should be, or this belongs to me, or this must not change, the greater our pain when reality differs. Buddhism encourages us to become aware of these attachments. I was clinging to this, we might realize. I was angry that things didn't go my way. I was afraid of losing this. Through such realizations, the internal structure of our suffering gradually becomes clearer. This moment of realization is the very first step toward liberation from suffering. The issue isn't the existence of suffering itself. It's our failure to recognize it, to understand its cause, and our tendency to blindly run from it or blame others and our circumstances. So then, how can we deepen our understanding of dukkha, the noble truth of suffering? Start by pausing whenever you feel emotional pain, frustration, or anxiety in your daily life. Instead of rejecting those feelings, try to face them with openness. Acknowledge them gently, saying to yourself, I am suffering right now, or this too is a natural part of being human. Even this small act can begin to shift your relationship with suffering. From there, look into what lies behind your suffering. What were you clinging to? What were you afraid of? Losing? What expectations were left unfulfilled? Through this kind of introspection, you begin to see the structure of suffering itself. Also, remember that you are not alone in your pain. Many others experience the same kind of suffering. When you recognize that your experience is part of a shared human condition, feelings of isolation soften, and empathy for others begins to arise naturally. And perhaps most importantly, keep in mind that suffering is not eternal. Everything is in flux. Suffering, too, changes form and eventually passes. When you adopt the perspective that this, too, shall change, you are less likely to be overwhelmed by pain. Instead, you can observe it, learn from it, and allow it to move through you. The phrase "life is suffering" is not a declaration of pessimism. It is a compassionate and wise invitation to see life as it is, to accept its truths, and to discover a freedom that arises from that acceptance. After teaching the truth of suffering, the Buddha always went on to teach the truths of its cause, samudaya, its cessation, nirodha, and the path to its end, magga. He never stopped at suffering, he pointed the way beyond it. This means that the first noble truth is not a message of despair, but a gateway to hope. It is only through understanding suffering that we can begin to move toward real freedom. As long as we keep turning away from pain, it will continue to control us. But when we come to understand its nature and learn how to relate to it skillfully, we can live with a completely different state of mind, even in the same difficult circumstances. If you can begin to see your own suffering, not just as a burden, but as an opportunity to understand, to grow, and to awaken, then suffering becomes not an obstacle but a doorway to liberation. In the next video, we will explore the second noble truth, samudaya, the cause of suffering. We'll look at how the Buddha uncovered this cause and how he explained it. When we understand the cause, we also begin to see clearly how to respond to it. Today's topic was a deep and serious one, so thank you for staying with me until the end. I sincerely hope that this exploration of the truth of suffering has offered something meaningful for your own journey. If this message resonated with you, I'd be grateful if you would subscribe to the channel and click like, and if you feel comfortable, please share in the comments how you've faced your own suffering. Your story might be just the lesson someone else needs to hear. I'll see you in the next video. Together, let's keep learning from the Buddha's teachings, so we can live with greater peace and freedom. Thank you for watching. Until next time, may your heart be at peace.